It started with a phone call I never wanted to answer. A Saturday afternoon, the kind where the sun spills over the kitchen counter and you think the world's finally quiet. My bourbon glass caught the light. The house smelled of cedar polish and solitude. Then the phone rang. "Hey, Richard," said a voice I recognized but never liked saying my name. My son-in-law, Travis. He always stretched my name like he was testing its limits. "You got a minute?" I almost didn't. But blood, or whatever remains of it, has a way of binding you to bad decisions. "What is it, Travis?" He sighed, as if this was difficult for him. "It's about the kids. Emily and I were wondering, maybe you could help us out a little more." That wasn't new. Help out was Travis speak for. "Open your wallet." "I already covered their school trips," I said. "And the new bikes last month." "What's this time?" Silence, just the sound of someone pacing. Then, "Well, the truth is, I've been spending a lot of time with the kids lately, taking them places. Emily's been exhausted. So I figured maybe it's fair if that time was, compensated." I thought I misheard. "Compensated?" "Yeah. Like a small appreciation for my effort. Gas, meals time. You want your grandkids to have memories, right?" I set my glass down so hard the bourbon rippled. "Travis, are you telling me you want money to spend time with your own children?" He chuckled, the kind of laugh that isn't laughter at all. "Come on, don't make it sound bad. It's just practical. You know how everything costs something these days." I leaned against the counter, the old ache behind my ribs starting to stir. "And Emily agrees with this?" "She does. She said you'd understand." The room tilted. For a moment I wasn't in my kitchen. I was back years ago, standing at Emily's graduation, when she hugged me and said, "Dad, you taught me that love isn't measured in money." I believed her. Now her husband was selling her children's affection by the hour. "I'll think about it," I said. My voice came out quieter than I intended. "Great," Travis said. "I'll swing by tomorrow to pick up the kids. Maybe we can settle it then. Cash works best." Click. The line went dead, and something else did too. That night, I sat on the porch, bourbon untouched this time. The Texas sky was painted in bruised colors, violet, gold, then the deep red of anger trying to disguise itself as sunset. I'd seen greed before. I'd been a contractor for 30 years. I'd seen good men turn sour chasing one more zero on a paycheck. But this was different. This was family. I remembered Emily's laughter when she used to run barefoot through the yard, her hair catching the light. She'd bring me lemonade and tell me I worked too much. I'd smile and tell her I was building her future. Now, that future was asking me to pay rent on my own bloodline. Sunday morning, I brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Travis's white Tesla slid up the driveway like a shark gliding into shallow water. Emily sat in the passenger seat, eyes hidden behind sunglasses, even though the sky was gray. The kids jumped out first, Lily 8 and Noah 6. They ran toward me with open arms, the way only children still untouched by adult poison do. I hugged them tight, breathing in the scent of shampoo and innocence. Then I looked over their heads and met Travis's eyes. He smiled. "Beautiful day, huh?" "For now," I said. Emily avoided my gaze. She fiddled with her phone, pretending the screen had answers. Travis clapped his hands. "All right, gang. We've got a big day. Zoo then ice cream. But before we go," he looked at me meaningfully, "did you have a chance to think about what we talked about?" I nodded slowly. "I did. And I'll take care of it." "Good man," he said, slapping my shoulder like we were teammates instead of adversaries. "You can just put it in an envelope. Easier that way." I stared at him until his smile faltered. "Don't worry," I said softly. "It'll be in an envelope." He didn't catch the tone. He never did. They drove off in a cloud of dust, laughter spilling out of the car windows. I watched them disappear down the road, the sound fading into something hollow. When the silence settled again, I went inside and pulled out an old photo album. There was Emily, 5 years old, covered in flour, holding a cookie bigger than her face. "Don't grow up too fast," I told her then. She had. Too fast, and in the wrong direction. My hand trembled slightly as I closed the album. Not from age, from control. The kind that comes before something breaks. I wasn't sure what my revenge would look like yet. Only that it was coming. That night, the phone rang again. This time it was my friend James, an attorney who'd handled my affairs since my wife passed. "You sound off," he said. "Just thinking," I replied. "About what?" "Family business," I said. "The kind that needs to be handled quietly." He chuckled. "Those are the dangerous ones." "Yeah," I said, staring out at the dark yard. "But sometimes silence isn't peace. It's pressure." I ended the call and turned off the lights. Through the glass, I could still see the faint reflection of myself, older, wearier, but with something awake behind the eyes. They thought I was soft. They thought I'd pay to keep love alive. They forgot who taught them the value of things. And come tomorrow, I'd start reminding them. The following Friday, they came again. I heard the Tesla before I saw it, smooth, expensive, soulless. The hum of entitlement wrapped in white paint. Emily was out first, carrying a grocery bag like a peace offering. "Dad," she said, her voice too bright. "We brought dinner." Behind her, Travis followed, sunglasses perched on his head, wearing that grin people wear when they think they're in control of the room. "Thought we'd have a little family evening," he said. I let them in. The house smelled of old wood and quiet decisions. Emily set the bag down on the counter. "It's your favorite, chicken pot pie." "That's nice," I said without smiling. "Let's eat." We sat around the table. The kids talked about school. Noah had built a paper rocket. Lily was learning piano. Their laughter was real. It was the only real thing at that table. Halfway through dinner, Travis leaned back in his chair, tapping the table with his fork like a man waiting for applause. "So," he said, glancing at Emily, "did you get the envelope ready?" Emily's fork froze midair. "Travis." He raised an eyebrow. "What?" "We talked about this." I placed my napkin down slowly. "It's ready." He smiled wide. "Now that's efficiency. I like that about you, Richard." I didn't answer. I reached under the table and placed a sealed envelope beside his plate. Travis smirked, gave it a casual tap with 2 fingers. "Appreciate it." "Really?" Lily looked up. "What's that, Grandpa?" Travis answered before I could. "That's just adult stuff, sweetheart. Grandpa's helping Daddy out." The words landed like a slap. Emily's eyes darted to me, pleading silently for calm. I gave her none. Instead, I said quietly, "No, Lily. That's not true. It's payment." Travis's smile faltered. "Richard. For your father's time with you," I finished. "He charges me by the hour." The kids looked confused. Emily went pale. "Dad, please," she whispered. "Don't do this in front of them." I stood, picked up my plate, and set it in the sink. The clatter broke the silence. "You're right," I said. "Not in front of them." I turned to Travis. "Let's talk outside." On the porch, the air was heavy, the kind that presses against your ribs. Travis crossed his arms. "You didn't have to make a scene. You didn't have to make a transaction out of love," I replied. He laughed, low and dismissive. "You think everything's about love. It's about balance. I give time, I get appreciation. That's life, old man. I built this house with my hands," I said. "Every nail, every wall. I gave Emily a life where she never had to question safety or decency. And now you're selling that inheritance by the hour." Travis stepped closer. "You know what your problem is? You can't stand that she listens to me now. You're not the man of her life anymore. I am." For the first time, I smiled. It wasn't kind. You mistake manhood for control. That's your first mistake. The second, I tapped the envelope, is thinking you're owed anything you didn't earn. He snorted. Save your speeches. You want to know what's inside that envelope so bad? Let's see. He tore it open. His smirk faded as his eyes scanned the paper. What the hell is this? A bill, I said evenly. For every dollar I've spent on Emily and the kids since you married her. Mortgage support. School tuition. Medical bills. Even that Tesla you drive, half the down payment came from a loan I guaranteed. He blinked. You're insane. No, I said softly. I'm done. Emily appeared in the doorway, voice shaking. Dad, what are you doing? What I should have done 2 years ago, I said. Ending charity disguised as family. Travis shoved the papers back into the envelope and threw it onto the ground. You think you can guilt me with this crap? You're a bitter old man hiding behind money. I met his glare. No. I'm a man who remembers value. You should try it sometime. He stepped closer again, his voice low, venomous. Careful, Richard. You're playing with fire. I know things you wouldn't want people to hear. Like what? He smiled again, ugly this time. Like the fact that Emily's been dipping into your accounts for months. She said you wouldn't notice. Dad forgets things these days. Her words, not mine. Emily gasped. Travis. But the damage was done. I looked at her. Is that true? Her eyes brimmed with tears. Dad, please. I just needed to cover. Answer me. Yes, she whispered. The silence afterward was so deep it felt physical. Travis folded his arms again, triumphant. See? Nobody's clean in this family. I looked at him, calm, cold, surgical. You think you won something just now? I did. No, I said. You just told me how to destroy you. They left soon after. The kids waved from the car, unaware that something irreversible had cracked open behind them. When the tail lights disappeared, I stood on the porch a long time, the papers still fluttering where he'd thrown it. Inside the envelope, beneath the fake invoice, was another paper, one he hadn't noticed. A copy of the title deed to the house. His name was on it, and a clause I'd quietly added months ago when Emily asked me to help with their refinancing. That clause meant I could trigger a review of ownership under breach of moral trust, something my lawyer had crafted to protect family property from misuse. Travis had just handed me the justification. He'd confessed greed in front of witnesses, Emily and the kids. That was all I needed. But this wouldn't be about paperwork. This would be about teaching him that you can't sell what isn't yours to begin with: love, loyalty, or legacy. That night, I called James again. I need your help, I said. On what? Drafting justice, I replied. He exhaled. How bad is it? Bad enough that I want it done right. I could almost hear his smile. Then it'll be my pleasure. I hung up, poured one last drink, and raised it toward the quiet, empty kitchen. To Travis, I muttered. You wanted an envelope. I'll give you one that'll end your world. The next morning, the sky was the color of steel. I'd always believed that storms didn't start in the clouds, they started in people. I was done being struck by lightning. It was time to become it. I drove into Austin just after sunrise. The streets were still waking up, and so was I, in a different sense. For months I'd been walking through my own life like a man holding his breath. Now, I finally exhaled. James's office was quiet, lined with books that looked like they'd survived a few wars. He stood when I entered, coffee in hand. You look like hell, he said. I feel worse, I replied, sitting across from him. He leaned forward. Tell me everything. I did. Every word, every look, every insult dressed as civility. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he set his cup down and exhaled slowly. Your son-in-law's a parasite, he said. I've dealt with parasites before, I said. The trick isn't to kill them, it's to starve them first. He smiled faintly. So what's your move? I want him to believe he's winning. I want him confident. Entitled. Greedy. That shouldn't be hard. I slid a folder across the desk. Inside were copies of the property deeds, insurance policies, and an old trust fund account I'd opened for Emily years ago. I'm shifting everything, I said. Liquidating the secondary assets, the stocks, the land in Bastrip, the lake cabin. We're transferring it all to a new holding company. Quietly. James raised an eyebrow. You're cutting him off. No, I said. I'm baiting him. I want him to see movement, smell opportunity. He'll think there's money floating, waiting to be taken. James nodded slowly. You're going fishing. And he's the only fish stupid enough to bite twice. By noon, the documents were in motion. By evening, I was back home, and the air felt different, lighter somehow. Emily called just after dinner. Her voice was trembling. Dad, Travis said you went to your lawyer? What are you doing? Fixing things, I said. She was quiet for a long time. Then, he's scared. He thinks you're cutting us out of the trust. Are you? She asked. I'm making sure the right people deserve it, I replied. Dad, please don't make this worse. Emily, I said, my voice soft but deliberate. Do you love him? Of course I do. Then you'll stand beside him when it all falls apart. She started to cry. Why are you talking like this? Because this isn't about anger anymore, I said. It's about clarity. That night, I sat on the back porch again. The cicadas were loud, the bourbon warm in my hand. I thought about all the times I'd fixed broken things, fences, engines, lives. But this was different. You can't fix people who profit from your kindness. You can only show them what happens when it runs out. Over the next week, I played my part. I made a few calls within earshot of Emily, careful, deliberate half-conversations. Yes, the account transfer should go through by Friday. Yes, the appraisal came back higher than expected. Travis took the bait. On Wednesday evening, he showed up at my door, all charm and false humility. Hey, Richard, he said. Heard you've been making some financial moves. Emily mentioned something about assets shifting. Everything okay? Just cleaning up, I said, smiling faintly. Making sure things are protected. He leaned on the doorframe. Protected from what? Life, I said. He chuckled. Come on, you can tell me. We're family. Family? I repeated, tasting the word like something sour. Tell you what, Travis? Why don't you come by tomorrow? I'll show you what's what. His grin returned. Now we're talking. I called James that night. He's coming, I said. James's voice sharpened. You're sure you want to go through with this? I've never been more sure. What's the end game? Exposure, I said simply. Public, permanent, poetic. Then let's make it legal. He emailed the drafts within the hour, a series of documents tied to a joint venture agreement, something Travis wouldn't understand but would definitely sign if he thought there was money involved. The clause was clear. Any claim made against my estate under false pretenses would be classified as fraudulent acquisition, triggering legal forfeiture. Travis would hang himself. All I had to do was hand him the rope. Thursday came. He arrived in a pressed shirt and fake smile, reeking of cologne and confidence. Morning, Richard, he said, walking in uninvited. I had coffee ready, documents on the table. What's all this? He asked. An opportunity, I said. You said you wanted appreciation for your time with the kids? Here it is, a small investment deal. If you want to be part of the family business, you should have some skin in the game. He frowned. Family business? Property development, I said smoothly. The old Bastrop land. Market's rising again. I'm looking for partners. He blinked, calculating. And what's my part? Sign here, I said, sliding the papers toward him. And you'll be entitled to a percentage of future profits. His greed flared like a struck match. Seriously? Seriously. He hesitated. Why the sudden generosity? I smiled. Call it family appreciation. He didn't even read the second page. Just signed, initialed, and grinned like a man who thought he'd just stolen something. Pleasure doing business, I said, shaking his hand. You won't regret it, he replied. Oh, I said quietly. I already don't. After he left, I called James again. He signed. There was a pause. Then it begins. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the faint fingerprints he'd left on the glass table. The thing about fingerprints, they fade, but they never disappear completely. Neither do debts. Later that night, Emily called again. She sounded tired, defeated. Dad, Travis said you're starting a business together. Is that true? In a way, I said. I don't understand any of this. She whispered. You will, I said. When it's over. She started crying softly. I never meant to hurt you. I know, I said. But you did. And now I have to make sure no one else does. When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't in a long time, peace. Not joy, not triumph. Just peace. The kind that comes when the pieces finally start to fall into place. The trap was set. He'd taken the bait with both hands. And in a few weeks, when the right people saw what he'd signed, the man who charged me for love would learn the real cost of greed. In the days that followed, I became invisible, the most dangerous state a man like me could reach. Travis thought silence meant surrender. He'd forgotten that predators don't roar when they're close, they breathe quietly. Monday morning, I met with James downtown. His office overlooked the river, sunlight cutting through the blinds like prison bars. He had a folder open before I even sat down. It's done, he said. Your son-in-law's signature turned your investment into a declaration of intent. He thinks it's a joint venture, but legally it's a confession of interest in family assets without fiduciary disclosure. In English, James, it means, he said with a thin smile, that he just admitted to trying to exploit you for financial gain. If he moves another inch, we've got him by the throat. I nodded slowly. Good. Now we wait. James frowned. You're not filing it yet? Not yet. I want him to believe he's safe. I want him comfortable when the ground starts to move. You always were patient, James muttered. Patience, I said, is just anger with better manners. That night, I called Emily again. She sounded small on the phone, like a child who'd wandered too far from home. Travis says the papers went through, she said. He's been bragging all week. He thinks you're giving him part of the estate. Let him think that, I said. Dad, he's talking about selling his share already. To pay off debts. Good, I replied. Let him dig. Why are you doing this? Because some people only learn the shape of the cage after they close the door on themselves. By the weekend, Travis had turned his newfound investment into a performance. He told friends, neighbors, even the kids' school principal that he was expanding the Beaumont legacy. I watched from the sidelines, the calm in the eye of his storm. He came by that Sunday, unannounced, as usual. I've got great news, he said, stepping inside like he owned the place. Found a buyer interested in the Bastrop property. Private equity firm. Says they'll pay top dollar once the paperwork's sorted. Is that so? Yeah. Once we finalize your end, I'll introduce you. You'll thank me later. I studied him for a long moment. And what exactly do you think you own, Travis? He smirked. Come on, Richard. Don't play dumb. You and I are partners now. That land's as much mine as yours. That's one way to see it, I said, pouring coffee. But partnerships have rules. He raised an eyebrow. Rules? Every action has consequences. You've read the fine print, haven't you? He shrugged. Who reads fine print? Smart men, I said. That night, I called James again. Accelerate the filings, I said. Quietly. I want the ownership review underway before he even knows what he signed. You're sure? That'll trigger public notice. Good, I said. He wants fame, let him get it. 2 days later, the first call came. Mr. Beaumont? Said a voice from the Bastrop County Registrar's office. We're confirming the transfer validation between yourself and a Mr. Travis Hale. Go ahead, I said, pretending to be surprised. His claim seems inconsistent, the clerk said carefully. It references co-ownership under a family investment clause. That clause doesn't exist in the state's registry. Do you wish to dispute? Absolutely, I said. Please note that the attached signature was obtained under fraudulent misrepresentation. Understood, sir. We'll forward it to the Oversight Committee. By Friday, Travis was calling me nonstop. I let it ring. When I finally answered, his voice was trembling with controlled rage. What the hell is going on, Richard? I just got a notice from the registrar saying there's a dispute on the Bastrop claim. Dispute? I said calmly. That's odd. Did you file something? Don't play dumb. You set me up. I smiled faintly. You did that yourself when you signed a contract you didn't read. You can't do this to me. Travis, you did this to yourself. I just handed you the pen. He showed up that night, loud, red-faced, drunk on his own panic. Emily trailed behind him, crying, pleading. Dad, please stop this, she begged. He's scared. He says he might lose his job if this goes public. He should have thought about that before making a business deal he didn't understand, I said. Travis slammed his fist against the table. You're a cold old bastard. Maybe, I said. But I sleep well. You think this is over? He hissed. You want a war? Fine. You'll regret ever crossing me. He stormed out, nearly tearing the screen door off its hinges. Emily stayed behind, her hands trembling. I don't even recognize him anymore, she whispered. You married ambition, Emily, I said softly. Now you're meeting its real face. She started to speak, then stopped, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. I never meant for it to come to this. I know, I said. But sometimes we don't choose the lesson, we just live through it. 3 days passed in silence. Then the first ripple hit. A journalist from the Austin Ledger called me. Mr. Beaumont, we're investigating an attempted fraudulent claim on property assets connected to your family trust. The name Travis Hale came up. Do you have a comment? I paused. Only that truth always collects its debts. The next morning, his face was on the front page. Local entrepreneur under investigation for estate fraud. I didn't smile. I didn't need to. Emily called, sobbing. He's ruined. Everyone's talking about it. He says you leaked it. I didn't have to, I said. Paper trails are louder than gossip. Dad, please, he'll lose everything. Then maybe he'll finally understand what everything means. That night, I sat in the dark living room, watching the rain run down the windows like tears the house was too proud to shed. The phone buzzed again. James. It's official, he said. The review board stripped his claim. He's out. Completely. The land, the assets, the trust, all safe. I nodded, though he couldn't see it. What about Emily? He asked. She'll have to choose her side, I said quietly. And she'll have to live with it. But victory never feels like you think it will. When the house grew quiet again, I felt no triumph, only the hum of something hollow. I'd won the game, yes. But the prize was silence. Still, silence can be peace. And sometimes peace is the only form of revenge worth keeping. 3 weeks after the article, the phone rang again. It was Emily. Her voice was ragged, the kind that sounds like it's been crying for days. Dad? Travis wants to talk to you. I'm listening. No, in person. Please. He's not doing well. I looked out at the yard, the same porch where he'd once stood, full of arrogance and entitlement. Tomorrow, I said. Here. The next morning, the sky was low and gray. Travis arrived without his Tesla. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes red. He didn't knock, he just stood at the doorway, shoulders caved in, pride evaporated. Emily followed behind him, hands clasped like she was holding herself together. I gestured toward the table. Sit. He did. For the first time since I'd met him, Travis didn't speak first. The silence stretched long enough to feel sacred. Finally, he said, "You ruined me." I poured coffee for both of us. "No," I said quietly. "You ruined yourself. I just took notes." He laughed, dry and hollow. "You think you're better than me?" "No. Just older. Which means I've already made my mistakes, and I learned from them." His voice cracked. "They fired me, Richard. My name's on every paper, every post online. I can't even pick up the kids from school without people whispering. You happy now?" I looked at him carefully. Happiness had nothing to do with it. He slammed his palm on the table. "Then what the hell was it about?" "About teaching you that there are lines you don't cross. Not with family. Not with children. And not with the man who built the ground you're standing on." He stared at me. Something flickered in his eyes then, a mix of hatred and understanding. "You think this makes you the hero?" "No," I said. "It just makes me free." Emily stood by the window, silent, tears streaking her face. "Dad, please, can't we just stop?" "It's over." "Almost," I said. "But not quite." I reached into the drawer and pulled out a small brown envelope, thinner than the last one. I placed it on the table between us. Travis flinched like it might bite. "What's that?" "The envelope you asked for," I said. "Payment for your time with the kids." He frowned. "You're mocking me." "No," I said. "Open it." He hesitated, then tore it open. Inside was a check, made out for $1, and a note. He read it aloud. "For services rendered, pretending to be a father." He went still. Emily covered her mouth. "You wanted payment," I said quietly. "That's what your time was worth." His breathing grew uneven. "You think this is funny? I think it's justice." He threw the check at me, but I didn't move. It fluttered to the floor like a dead leaf. "You can have the last word, Travis," I said. "I'm done speaking to liars." He stood, shaking. "You'll regret this." "No," I said calmly. "But you will." He left, slamming the door behind him. Emily lingered, trembling. "Dad, he's angry. I'm scared of what he might do." "Then stay here tonight," I said. "You and the kids. Let the storm pass." That evening, thunder rolled in from the west, slow, deliberate. Emily sat on the couch, her head in her hands. "I can't believe it came to this," she whispered. "I thought I was protecting my family." "You were protecting him," I said. "There's a difference." She looked up, eyes red. "Do you hate me?" I shook my head. "No. I hate what he made you believe, that love is something you can buy or trade." She nodded slowly. "I see that now." "Then maybe," I said softly, "we can start again." By morning, the storm had passed. Travis was gone. He'd left town sometime during the night. Emily found his keys on the porch, his wedding ring beside them. I called James that afternoon. "It's done," I said. "You sure?" "Yes," I said. "He's gone. The papers are final. The estate's secure. The press has moved on." James paused. "How do you feel?" I looked around the quiet house. Like someone who finally turned off the noise. A week later, I took the kids to the park. Lily ran ahead with her kite. Noah tried to help her steer it. They laughed, pure, bright, uncalculated. Emily watched from the bench beside me. "They've missed you," she said. "I've missed them more." She turned to me, hesitant. "You think we can fix this?" "Some things don't need fixing," I said. "Just rebuilding. Different wood, same foundation." She smiled weakly. You always speak in metaphors. Occupational hazard, I said, watching the kite climb higher. When the sun dipped low, Noah came running. Grandpa, look, he said, holding out a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing, me, Emily, and the kids standing under a big oak tree. He'd written in shaky letters, family. No price. I felt something tighten in my throat. I ruffled his hair. That's perfect, kiddo. That night I sat on the porch again, same chair, same bourbon, but everything different. The world was quiet. The air was clean. I took out the dollar check, still folded in my pocket. On the back I wrote one line. The cost of peace, $1, 3 broken hearts, and a clear conscience. Then I burned it. The paper curled, turned black, and vanished, like anger finally letting go of its shape. I didn't feel triumph. I felt balance. They say revenge doesn't heal you. They're right. But it teaches you who you are when the fire goes out, and whether you can live with what's left in the ashes. I could. It's strange how silence changes once you stop fighting it. For months, the quiet in this house felt heavy, like waiting for a verdict. Now it feels earned. Autumn came early that year. The oak trees outside began shedding their leaves before September was even done. I like that. There's honesty in things that know when to let go. The morning sun reached through the blinds, landing on the old photo of me, Emily, and her mother. My late wife's smile hadn't faded, not in 20 years. I wondered what she'd say about everything that happened. Maybe nothing. She always believed that some lessons couldn't be taught, they had to be lived through. Emily and the kids visit often now. No more phone calls asking for help, no envelopes, no tension between every word. The kids run through the yard again. Lily paints rocks and lines them along the fence. Noah builds forts out of fallen branches. Their laughter sounds like forgiveness. Sometimes I watch them from the porch and realize something important. Revenge doesn't fix what's broken, it just clears the debris so you can rebuild. Last week, I found Travis's ring still sitting where he left it, on the porch railing, right beside a cigarette burn. Emily doesn't talk about him anymore. She filed for divorce quietly, without drama, without tears. Just finality. I thought I'd be angry forever, she told me the other night. I told her anger's like a loan, you pay interest until you let it go. She smiled. You always turn pain into math, Dad. Maybe, I said. It helps me keep score of what matters. James came by yesterday, too. He brought paperwork, the final legal confirmations. The trust restored. The property mine again. Congratulations, he said, signing the last page. You won. I laughed softly. Won what exactly? He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Yeah. I guess that depends on what game you thought you were playing. That night, after everyone had gone home, I drove out to the Bastrop land. It was dusk, the air thick with that dry Texas heat that smells like dust and rain that never quite arrives. The property stretched out in all directions, acres of earth, quiet and stubborn. I parked by the fence and walked until I found the old oak tree near the creek, the one Emily used to climb as a kid. I knelt, placed my hand against the bark, and felt the pulse of the land, solid, steady, older than every argument I'd ever had. This was what I'd been fighting for. Not just property. Continuity. The right for something honest to outlast greed. On my way back to the truck, I saw a familiar face, one of the neighbors, an old rancher named Walt. He tipped his hat. Heard about your son-in-law, he said. Hell of a thing. Yeah, I said. Hell of a thing. He studied me a moment. You get your justice? I got peace, I said. That's close enough. He nodded slowly. That's the better kind. When I got home, I poured a small drink, just one. I didn't toast to revenge, or to winning. I toasted to survival. To still being here after everything. To the sound of children's laughter coming through the open window. To the idea that maybe, just maybe, love can find its way back when money stops speaking for it. Before bed, I opened my journal, the one I'd started after my wife passed. The first entry was dated 12 years ago. The last entry was tonight. I wrote, "Travis took my peace. I took it back. Emily lost her way. She found it again. The kids will never know the cost, and that's how it should be." Then I closed it, slid it back into the drawer, and turned off the light. Somewhere outside, a coyote called. The sound echoed across the field, lonely, but alive. I listened until it faded into the night, then smiled. Justice doesn't make the world right again. It just makes it quiet enough for the good things to grow back. And that's enough. It's strange how silence changes once you stop fighting it. For a long time, this house felt like a courtroom, every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind, a question I couldn't answer. Now, silence feels like forgiveness. Not because everything's okay, it isn't, but because I finally understand that peace doesn't come from making the past right. It comes from learning to live with what's left. Autumn arrived early this year. The trees behind the house turned copper before September was half gone. Every morning, I sweep the porch and watch the leaves fall. Each one spins once before touching ground, like it's saying goodbye properly. I like that. There's honesty in things that fall gracefully. The air smells like rain and memory. The kind of smell that makes you remember who you were before anger set in. Sometimes, I still expect to hear Travis's car pull up. The hum of that white Tesla, the confident knock on the door. But the road stays quiet. The ghosts don't come back once they know they've been seen for who they are. Emily visits on weekends. No fancy dresses, no tension between sentences. She brings the kids, sometimes a pie, sometimes just stories. We sit on the porch, and she talks about finding a small apartment near the school, about painting again, something she'd given up years ago. She says it helps her breathe. I told her once, "Painting doesn't fix things. It just gives the pain somewhere else to live." She smiled and said, "That's why I need it." There's a calmness in her now I haven't seen since her mother passed. A quiet steadiness that only comes after losing everything you thought mattered and realizing what actually does. The kids have grown bolder. Lily's learning to climb the old oak out back, the same one Emily used to conquer barefoot. Noah helps me in the workshop, handing me tools with a seriousness that makes me laugh. One day last week he asked, "Grandpa, why don't you and Dad talk anymore?" I took a deep breath. "Because sometimes," I said, "grown-ups forget how to listen when they start talking about money." He frowned. "That's silly." I smiled. "You're right, kiddo. It is." He nodded like he understood more than I gave him credit for, then went back to holding the flashlight while I fixed the broken hinge on the back gate. That's life, I thought. Fixing hinges that someone else broke. James came by yesterday. He brought the last of the legal documents, thick envelopes tied with blue ribbon. "It's all clean now," he said. "The trust, the property, the accounts, every loose end tied up." I poured us coffee. "So it's done?" He nodded. "Legally, yes. Spiritually?" He gave a small shrug. "You tell me." I looked out the window, watching Noah chase a dog through the yard. "Spiritually," I said, "I think I'm somewhere between tired and free." James chuckled. "That's a better ending than most people get." He stayed a while. We didn't talk about revenge, or victory, or even Travis. Just weather, memories, and how the coffee used to taste stronger when we were younger. Before he left, he said, "You know, you could have taken him to court. Made it bigger." "I didn't need a crowd," I said. "I just needed silence." At night, when the house goes still, I sometimes walk through the hallway with a glass in hand and touch the photos on the wall. Emily as a child, her mother at her wedding, the grandkids at the park. Each one feels like a heartbeat I thought I'd lost but somehow found again. Grief doesn't end. It just changes shape. Sometimes it looks like loneliness, sometimes like peace. I think the hardest part of getting old isn't the pain, it's watching how quickly people forget where they came from. Travis forgot. Emily almost did. But the kids, they still remember what love sounds like when it laughs. A few nights ago, Emily stayed late after putting the kids to bed. She sat on the porch beside me, quiet for a long time, then said, "I thought revenge would ruin you, Dad. I was wrong." "It almost did," I said. "But it also saved me. It gave me something to focus on when forgiveness felt too far away." She nodded slowly. "Do you forgive him?" I took a long sip of bourbon, staring at the horizon where the stars were beginning to form. "I don't need to," I said. "Forgiveness is for people who still matter." "He doesn't." She didn't answer, but I saw relief flicker in her eyes, not joy, but relief. The kind that comes when the nightmare is finally over, even if the damage remains. Sometimes I think about that last envelope. The one with the dollar and the note. It wasn't just a message to Travis, it was a message to myself. To remind me that love, real love, never asks for payment. You give what you can, while you can. And if someone tries to measure it, that's your sign to stop giving. This morning, Noah drew something on the back of an old grocery list. He ran up to me, holding it like treasure. It was me, Emily, and the kids under a big tree. Above it, in shaky letters, he wrote, "Family, no price." I taped it to the fridge. Didn't need a frame. Some truths don't need borders to be seen. Tonight, the sky's clear. I can see the same stars my father once showed me when I was Noah's age. He used to say, "They're just old fires, Richard, burning far away," reminding us that even light has to travel through darkness to be seen. I get it now. I sit on the porch, the night air cool against my skin. The house is quiet. The land stretches out before me, steady, unmoving, like a promise kept. I think of Travis somewhere out there, chasing another quick win, and hope, for his sake, he finds a kind of peace that doesn't come at someone else's expense. Because if he doesn't, the world will teach him again. It always does. I take one last sip of bourbon, the last drop of the bottle I opened the day this all began. It tastes different now. Not bitter, not sweet. Just honest. I set the glass down and whisper into the night. The debt is paid. Then I lean back, close my eyes, and let the silence hold me, not as punishment, but as proof that I finally earned it. If this story moved you, please support the channel by liking the video, subscribing, and leaving a comment with your thoughts. To continue the journey, click the box on the left for the next story. Thank you for being here.